Hello, welcome back to 10 at 10. My name is Michael Ramage. I'm the director of the Cyber Education Research Center here at Murray State University. And welcome back to 10 at 10. 10 at 10 is brought to you through a partnership between Murray State University, Sprocket, West Kentucky, and KY Innovation. Welcome back to episode 269. I know it's an odd number episode, but we're actually going to look at some news of the last little bit, just because I've gotten the question a bunch, and it is obviously on everybody's mind right now. So I want to look at what's going on in Iran, what we're doing in Iran, but not so much a political perspective, but what does it mean for your business? The reality is, anytime there's something global, that it could have an impact on your business, whether you realize it or not, whether your business is aligned with one side or the other, it doesn't really matter. There's some potential threats there. So first of all, let me hit some headlines that I've seen that are worth noting. These are a couple of headlines I've noted from the last few days. First, the lead U.S. cyber agency is stretched thin as the Iran hacking threat escalates. So, we as a government have already noticed that the threat is escalating. There was some notifications for U.S. banks in particular that they are on high alert for cyber attacks as the Iran war escalates. And then the last one here is that pro-Russia actors have teamed up with Iran hackers in attacks. And then at the bottom, I shared the Department of Homeland Security have actually put out some guidance on for organizations that are dealing with Iran or cyber attacks, and how that might fit to what's going on in Iran and all of that. And I share this to say that your business may not be relevant enough for Iran to attack. Most of our businesses, I would venture to say 99.9% of our businesses, probably don't matter to Iran. However, there is a indirect threat. There is a potential threat depending on things that you post or who your business partners are. There is an indirect threat that others may target of opportunity, let's do it. So there are a lot of threats. So first, let me highlight, based on some of the guidance and some of my knowledge, what I would expect some potential threat areas to be. So when I say this, these are the areas that if your business falls into one of these areas, or these are the types of threat actors that we're worried about. Defense industrial based companies. So those businesses that are supporting our defense industry, especially if you're aligned with Israeli defense as well, defense company or a support, they're a target. There's certainly a direct target from Iran, because if the supplies can't get to the soldiers, then the attack is going to be weakened. Absolutely, that's a threat. A second threat is critical infrastructure targets. So those companies that are utilities, that are banking, that are energy, that are manufacturing, that are healthcare, there's 16 different critical infrastructure areas, dams. I guess that would fall under probably utilities, whatever it might be. If you fall into one of those categories, yeah, you should be on heightened alert. Absolutely. There's the threat from Iran aligned hacktivists. Those groups that are going to target any business, especially those that are pro Israel or anti Iran, or maybe even just pro US, just to show their support for Iran, they may launch an attack a denial of service, a ransomware attack, something along those lines. There is a risk and a threat there. Finally, there is the threat from threat actors always. There's a lot of bad guys that are always looking for an opportunity to launch an attack. What is the opportunity? How can I exploit an opportunity to launch an attack against an organization? How can I get you to be hit with ransomware? And more importantly, these bad guys are looking to make money. How can I make money while your focus is on something else? You've heard me talk about phishing emails and how a really good time for a bad guy to send a phishing email is on a Friday afternoon or over the weekend. Friday afternoon works really well because everybody's tired from the week. We're ready for the weekend. We're looking forward to the weekend. What can we do on the weekend? We're not paying close attention to the details, and the bad guys know that. So now, while we're so focused on Iran, can we come in the back and be successful? Bad guys are going to do that. So there's all of these things on there. What do we need to do about it? First of all, if you have an OT network, then if you're a critical infrastructure user, company, support function, then make sure that your operations technology, your industrial control systems are disconnected from the public internet, that there is segmentation between those assets and the internet. We've talked about that before, but that segmentation is important. And then beyond that, I go back to doing the things that we're supposed to be doing. We have minimum security standards that, frankly, we should all be doing. Yes, we've talked about, even recently, we've talked about security frameworks. We've talked about security standards. We've talked about security regulations that we have to follow. And a lot of companies are already following those. Absolutely, those are good things to do. Beyond that, what are the minimum things that we should all be doing? What are the minimum things that we should all be doing? If you don't have to align with a framework, a lot of companies aren't going to do that because it takes a lot of money and effort. But you and I can do this. You and I can follow the minimum security standards no matter what. What does that look like? That means having a policy, understanding what we need to be doing. What does that look like? That means using strong, unique passwords and implementing multi-factor authentication. Every system that can possibly have multi-factor authentication should have multi-factor authentication set up. We've talked about that a lot. That should be an important piece. Endpoint security. We should have endpoint security that is looking for the malware, that's looking for the threats, that's helping you detect those things. Security education awareness training. We got to have it. We got to have it. The way that these threat actors are going to get into your system is going to be because most likely through one of two things: a vulnerability that you haven't updated your software to support a known vulnerability. That's option number one. Option number two is going to be clicking on a link in an email. We got to do those things. Number four, monitoring. This gets more challenging because it's expensive. But if we can't see and detect the threat, then we're never going to know if the bad guy's in our system. How do we know if a hacktivist has breached our system? We don't unless we're doing something about it. Backups, we got to have backups. Backup. And then finally, test it, assess it, see what it looks like. If you wanted a third party to come in and give an assessment, I do that. I will do that for you. I'm not asking you to pay me. I want you to be safe. If I can help you, I certainly want to do that. And then, what I didn't talk about on the policy side is in particular, have an incident response plan of what happens if this bad thing were to happen. What do we do? All right. Well, I am out of time. I want to say there's a lot of bad things out there. While you may not be directly being targeted by Iran, you're not a military target. You're not, aligned with the military. You're still a potential target. And anytime there's a heightened sense of security across the globe, there's also needs to be a heightened sense of cybersecurity for our own organization. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Let me know. I'll be happy to talk to you more. And thank you for joining in for 10 at 10. I'll see you next week. Bye.